Welcome to History Channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. German paramilitary troops ride toward the Silesian front in 1921, their presence symbolizing the bitter struggle over contested territory. The Third Silesian Uprising marked a violent phase of conflict between Poles seeking independence and Germans determined to hold ground. These tense movements foreshadowed Europe's deeper fractures that would soon erupt again. John McCain's plane was shot down over Hanoi in 1967, plunging him into Trúc Bạch Lake. Injured, he was dragged ashore by North Vietnamese militia and civilians. This moment marked the beginning of over 5 years of captivity, shaping both his life and later political career. In Chechnya during 1995, a Russian soldier is captured in a candid scene of survival. He steals geese from villagers, a reminder of how ordinary lives intertwine with war. Small acts of desperation reflected the hardships of soldiers far from home, caught in a brutal, drawn-out conflict. A boy with skis stands proudly on a snowy street in Zakopane, Poland. In 1936, the simple image reflects a peaceful winter moment before the devastation of war reshaped the country. Childhood innocence and tradition are frozen here, just years before Poland faced unprecedented destruction and upheaval. A camel market in Tripoli during the 1950s bursts with life in original color. Traders and animals fill the scene, reflecting the vibrant rhythm of local commerce. This snapshot captures North Africa in a transitional era, balancing old desert traditions with the shifting winds of a modernizing world. Victor Gollancz speaks passionately at a London rally in September 1938, urging Britain to stand with Czechoslovakia during the Sudetenland crisis. His humanitarian voice carried weight as Europe teetered on the edge of war. The image reflects how ordinary citizens and leaders sought to resist appeasement and looming aggression. On September 22, 1939, German and Soviet troops paraded together in Brest-Litovsk, celebrating the partition of Poland. This uneasy alliance, sealed by the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, shocked the world. The march symbolized the temporary cooperation of two powers whose ideologies clashed but whose ambitions aligned in dismantling a sovereign nation. Inside the Rower internment camp in Arkansas, 1942, an instructor demonstrates a Tomo Nage throw to Japanese-American students. The judo class offered discipline and culture amid confinement. This photograph reflects resilience, how communities preserve traditions and dignity even under unjust imprisonment imposed by wartime fears and government policy. In June 1943, Detroit erupted in violence between white and black residents, forcing police to use tear gas. Tensions escalated until U.S. troops, originally destined for overseas combat, were deployed to restore order. The clashes highlighted deep racial divisions in America, even as the nation fought for freedom abroad. In 1943, Nazi forces secretly deployed Weather Station Kurt in Labrador, gathering crucial data for U-boat operations. Hidden in the remote wilderness, it remained undiscovered for decades. Only in 1981 did Canadian researchers uncover this relic of wartime espionage, a forgotten fragment of the global reach of World War II. In 1988, Pope John Paul II met Paraguayan dictator Alfredo Stroessner, a leader clinging to decades of authoritarian power. Stroessner's rule would collapse just a year later, forcing him into exile. The meeting underscored how even religious diplomacy sometimes intersected with regimes standing on the brink of downfall. A 1984 photograph captures Rwandan dictator Juvenal Habyarimana, who seized power in 1973. For 2 decades, his policies entrenched Hutu dominance, sowing division and resentment. His assassination in 1994 ignited one of history's darkest genocides, revealing how authoritarian rule and ethnic manipulation can spiral into unimaginable human catastrophe. On July 13, 1985, the Live Aid concert filled JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. From above, the aerial view shows an immense crowd united by music and cause. The event raised millions for famine relief in Africa, becoming one of the most iconic humanitarian concerts in modern history. In March 1939, armed radicals of the Slovak People's Party stormed a party headquarters. Their goal was to secure Slovak independence as Germany and Hungary exerted pressure on Czechoslovakia. The raid revealed the fragility of the state in its final days, as European borders shifted under looming war. On July 11, 1991, the skies over Chiapas, Mexico, darkened under a total solar eclipse. The rare spectacle drew scientists and crowds who watched daylight vanish into shadow. This striking photograph captures both natural wonder and human fascination with celestial events that have inspired awe across civilizations for centuries. In 1909, the first known photograph of Bran Castle, often linked to the Dracula legend, was taken in Romania. Its looming towers and Gothic profile inspired myths that tied it to Vlad the Impaler. This image preserves the castle's aura, blending history with folklore that still captivates the world. The Georgetown Rail Loop in Colorado, built in the late 19th century, wings dramatically through mountain terrain. This engineering feat allowed trains to climb steep grades using looping tracks and high bridges. The photograph captures the spirit of progress in America's industrial age, blending innovation with breathtaking landscapes. In Beirut during the 1860s, Dr. Jessup Seminary and the American Mission Press stood as symbols of Western influence in the Middle East. Education and printing spread ideas and culture, bridging distant worlds. This image reflects a period of exchange, when missionaries and local communities reshaped each other's histories. In the 1980s, a Shan United Revolutionary Army fighter stood guard at a border crossing between Thailand and Shan State. Armed and vigilant, he represented a movement resisting central control in Burma. The image captures the persistence of ethnic struggles that defined the region's turbulent political landscape for decades. In 1964, the Chapel Hill Freedom Committee organized a 13-mile march from Durham to Chapel Hill. Activists walked with determination, calling for civil rights and equality in the American South. This moment reflects the courage of grassroots movements, where ordinary people carried extraordinary weight in reshaping the nation's moral course. On September 7, 1942, the Indian Ward at the 3rd New Zealand General Hospital in Beirut treated soldiers far from home. The scene reflects the global reach of World War II, where colonial troops served on distant fronts. It shows both sacrifice and the unseen human cost of war. During the Thandikulam infiltration attack on June 10, 1997, Tamil Tiger commanders coordinated with walkie-talkies. The operation highlighted their guerrilla tactics in Sri Lanka's civil war. This photograph freezes a moment of insurgent determination, reminding us how communication and strategy shaped conflicts fought far from conventional battlefields. On May 13, 1945, Allied soldiers gathered for a service inside the bombed shell of Coventry Cathedral. The ruins framed a moment of solemnity and resilience. Britain's struggle had endured through devastation, and this act of worship symbolized both mourning for the past and hope for renewal after victory. In the 1980s, Burmese warlord Khan Say stood as the opium king of the Golden Triangle. Controlling vast trade networks, he amassed billions through heroin sales. A powerful yet shadowed figure, S.A. later retired into legitimacy, but his reign revealed how narcotics shaped politics, violence, and economies across Asia. In Amsterdam, December 1987, demonstrators gathered outside the Surinamese consulate. They protested the December murders under Desi Bouterse's regime, when opposition figures were executed. The protest reflected global outrage, showing how voices abroad amplified calls for justice in a country still gripped by dictatorship and silence. A look inside a 1944 consolidated B-24 Liberator cockpit shows the complexity of wartime aviation. Dials, switches, and controls surrounded crews who flew long and dangerous missions. This image captures the mechanical intensity of the bomber, reminding us of the skill and courage demanded from airmen in World War II. In Pyongyang during the 1970s, the Liberation Monument stood tall against the winter sky. Dedicated to Soviet forces who aided in Korea's liberation from Japanese rule, it symbolized alliance and remembrance. This photograph shows how architecture and ideology merged, shaping public memory in North Korea's tightly controlled society. In 1937 Berlin, Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini rode together in an open car during a motorcade. Their display of unity symbolized the growing bond between fascist powers. This image reflects the dangerous alliances that emboldened aggression, setting the stage for a devastating world war that would follow. A bookcase in Amsterdam concealed the entrance to the secret annex where the Frank family hid from 1942 to 1944. Behind these shelves, Anne Frank wrote her diary while fearing discovery. The photograph embodies secrecy, resilience, and the fragile hope of those persecuted during one of history's darkest chapters. In 1933 Berlin, the Karl Liebknecht House served as headquarters for Antifa and the Communist Party of Germany. Later seized by Nazis, the building became a symbol of political struggle. This colorized image highlights the turbulent clashes of ideologies that defined Germany before dictatorship silenced opposition voices. On May 3, 1978, South African parabats waited for deployment near Kasinga. Moments earlier, they had learned they were to raid a SWAPO base in Angola. Their faces show the tension of soldiers on the brink of action, caught in the wider conflicts of apartheid-era wars in southern Africa. On June 16, 1946, children in Fushan, Manchuria, greeted Edwin Pauley during the U.S. reparations tour. As a representative of the Allied Committee, Pauley assessed Axis reparations after World War II. The scene reflects both diplomacy and post-war transition, with young faces embodying cautious hope for a changing future. Edvard Beneš leaned from a train window in May 1945, returning to Prague after 7 years in exile. He resumed his role as president of Czechoslovakia, a nation scarred by occupation and war. The moment carried both relief and uncertainty, as citizens welcomed a leader tasked with rebuilding their future. On May 31, 1889, the South Fork Dam collapsed, sending a torrent of water into Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Entire neighborhoods were swept away, killing more than 2,000 people. The disaster remains one of America's deadliest floods, remembered for its devastation and for the lessons it taught about industrial negligence. In the 1890s, Amalfi was captured from the Capuchin convent, overlooking the Mediterranean. The town's terraced houses clung to steep cliffs, opening onto narrow streets and vibrant shores. This timeless view reflects both the natural beauty and enduring history of Italy's Amalfi Coast, where culture and landscape merge in harmony. In 1929, King Alexander of Yugoslavia inaugurated a memorial in Belgrade honoring the fallen of World War I. Standing solemnly before the monument, he paid tribute to a generation lost in battle. The ceremony underscored both national pride and the deep scars left by the Great War across the Balkans. After the devastating 1985 Mexico City earthquake, a temporary morgue was set up in a baseball stadium. A masked security guard stood watch over rows of coffins, a grim reminder of the disaster's scale. Thousands perished, and the city struggled through grief and recovery, holding on to resilience in the face of tragedy. In Havana, 1915, a panoramic photograph captured the boxing match between Jess Willard and Jack Johnson. Crowds filled the arena to witness Willard's victory, which ended Johnson's reign as heavyweight champion. The bout was more than sport, it reflected social tensions of race, power, and spectacle in the early 20th century. In December 1956, New York police bomb squads carefully removed a pipe bomb from the Paramount Theater in Times Square. The device was planted by George Metesky, the so-called Mad Bomber, who terrorized the city for 17 years. His attacks left New Yorkers anxious, until his eventual capture ended the campaign. By June 1945, trams in Stuttgart returned to service amid ruins of war. The city's streets, scarred by bombings, once again carried passengers through broken neighborhoods. This image reflects the resilience of ordinary life beginning to return, even as Germany faced the immense task of reconstruction in the aftermath of conflict. In 1932, construction workers in New York perched casually on a steel beam, high above the city streets. The iconic photograph captured both daring spirit and economic necessity during the Great Depression. It has since symbolized American resilience, courage, and the drive to build even in the hardest times. In 1976, Australian photographer Carol Jerams captured a Sharpie couple in Melbourne. The subculture was known for its fashion, music, and defiant style. Her photograph revealed both intimacy and toughness, preserving a fleeting youth movement that shaped identity and challenged mainstream culture in Australia during a turbulent decade. In 1916, the Army and Navy football teams met at the Polo Grounds in New York. Army triumphed 15-7, continuing a fierce rivalry that drew large crowds each year. The game symbolized both tradition and the close ties between military institutions and American sport during a period shaped by war. From the waist gunner's position in a B-17 Flying Fortress, the view extended across the skies of war in 1944. Surrounded by glass and steel, gunners faced constant danger from enemy fighters. The image captures the isolation, responsibility, and peril of airmen who played a crucial role in Allied bombing campaigns. At Munich's Oktoberfest in 1956, tents overflowed with visitors enjoying music, beer, and tradition. The festival had returned to full strength after years of post-war austerity, symbolizing Germany's cultural revival. This photograph reflects the enduring appeal of celebration, where centuries-old customs provided joy and identity in a rapidly changing nation. In 1918, at Camp Dodge, Iowa, 18,000 soldiers stood in formation to create a human Statue of Liberty. Seen from above, the massive display blended patriotism with military discipline. It was a striking symbol of unity and national pride at a time when America was engaged in world conflict. In 1990's Moscow, a police officer armed with an AK-74U carbine stood guard over detained prostitutes. The operation targeted organized crime and vice during a turbulent period after the Soviet collapse. The image reveals the stark realities of law enforcement and the social upheavals that define Russia's uncertain transition. At the Delhi Durbar of 1911, Mir Osman Ali, the Nizam of Hyderabad, paid homage to King George V and Queen Mary. The elaborate ceremony marked imperial power at its peak, blending Indian royalty with British monarchy. The moment reflected both tradition and the realities of colonial subjugation in India. In 1946 Beijing, a Japanese commander signed surrender documents at a table in the Winter Palace. Behind him stood costumes of ancient palace guards, while a Chinese throne loomed in the background. The scene blended victory, ceremony, and symbolism, marking the end of Japanese control and the return of Chinese sovereignty. A 1990s mugshot shows Rafael Perez, an LAPD officer later exposed as deeply corrupt. Linked to gangs, theft, and even murder, he shook confidence in the police force. His scandal inspired the film Training Day, showing how one man's actions could cast a long shadow over justice in Los Angeles,